Hello and welcome to SkySwitch University. In this unit, we want to cover the quotes tool. This is going to be very important to, getting your business off the ground, quoting customers, and just understanding how to launch your sales efforts. Okay, so when you're in your Dash Manager, you're going to click on Quotes. And starting off, there are some global settings that you need to be aware of. Now, you'll come to your main page here, the dashboard, in the quotes tool, and you may see this: create 5 quotes to unlock your dashboard. So as you get past the 5 quote level, you'll see your dashboard. There will be some statistics here, like your closing ratio, percentage, just some operation data, totals, some quote summaries, won, lost, pending. You see that kind of grayed out here. But once you get past your 5 quote, after you submit 5 quotes, you'll start seeing these statistics here. Now you're going to see these tabs across the top. We will want to start with the account tab. Now you're going to want to come in here and set your global account settings, your name, address, country, state, zip, just your information here, your website, and then your logo. So you can upload your logo here, and then it will appear on your quotes. So you're going to want to come in and set your account settings. Don't worry about resellers tab or statement tabs. These 2 tabs don't apply. But I do want to point out the usage and plan tab. So if you click on this, it's going to give you the number of quotes that you've created, number of users. Now if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see here that we have you on what is called the SkySwitch demo plan. And if you notice, we're not charging you for this plan. It comes with the with our service, and it gives you 200 quotes right here. Because I'm in my demo unit, we have a special demo special demo account, and we get 500 quotes. But you're going to be on plan A, and it's going to show you that you have 200 quotes and a user limit of 3. Now if you want to add users, you can go above the 3, but it will cost $10 per month per user, beyond the 3. And I'll point out this again on the users tab. Now you can upgrade to an advanced account, and that would be $25 a month for the account, not per user, but for the account. It would take you up to 500 quotes, and again the 3 users, and it would add in premium integrations, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and some advanced reporting. Okay, so you will want to notice that usage and plan tab and the account information, and get that completed. And again, these are your global settings. Now if you then scroll over to the settings tab, this will give you a few more global settings to make your quotes tool look and feel the way you want it to look, and operate the way you want it to operate. Now here are some general settings, email notification settings. You can display your quotes publicly via the web, and so if you were to, you can decide whether you want to notify someone when a quote is set to display publicly on the web, and this would be the public quote notification recipients, and separate them by a comma if you want, like an internal team or a sales team or whatever, to be notified when a quote is then displayed publicly. This is order notification recipients. So when you have a quote and you change the setting of the quote to ordered, then this team or these people would be notified that that quote has been set to ordered. So if you have an operations group and you have your sales group do the quotes, and then they have a customer accept a quote, and they change the setting of that quote to ordered, then these people would be notified of that. Okay, also you can set a default email signature across all users, and if you notice, it says here, if a user has a signature set on their profile, it will override this default email signature. Okay, and I'll point that out on the user in a moment on the users tab. There's some other settings here involving emails and privacy policy, quote delivery, whether you can go with a web view or a PDF view. That's going to be pretty common. You can set the start number of your quotes, so you don't want it to start at 1 and be such a low number, so you could start it whatever you want to start it to, 1257 or whatever. And this is the default expiration of the quote, and this will show on the quote that it expires in a certain amount of days from the date of the quote. Set your time zone, your formats, page size, page orientation. Down here at the bottom you can set some Google Analytics code. But that's typically when you're using multiple domains or subdomains. But there are some advanced settings in the quotes tool, and you'll see those occasionally. So you can save those settings and then move on to the next tab. So on the users tab, this is where you will see the users that you have, and you will also see that you can add new users. Now what you're going to notice is at the bottom you'll see a user called SkySwitch admin. Now we add this user in for support purposes, so you're going to want to leave this user this admin user in place for us so that we can be helpful when you have questions and you need us to jump into the quotes tool to help you. Now you'll notice that we have 3 users, and so that's what you'll have. We're in a demo account, so it says 6, but yours will say 4, and it's 4 because we have the admin account in here as well. Now when you want to go beyond this, just open a ticket, say, hey, I need to add a user to my quotes tool. We'll get that user added, then we'll let you know, and then we can make sure that in their Dash Manager access, when they access the quotes tool, it is their account. And that's a point I want to bring up. When you're logged in to your Dash Manager, your quotes tool account is attached to you. Okay, so when I look at, for example, this particular user, Jason, for one thing, there's going to be a user type, whether it's an account owner or admin, product manager, sales manager, reseller admin, salesperson, etc. So when you create a user, you can determine what type of user account they are. And then also you'll notice just regular user information, but here is their email signature. Okay, so if they create an email signature here that will then be used in all their correspondence of their quoting, then it would override the global setting email signature. Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out earlier. Here gives there's some description of the user types here. All right, so let's just go back. So this will show you your users, and it'll show you assigned people are actual people that they've quoted. Okay, and so if you need to add users, here's where you'll do it. If you need to see your current users, you can see those here. Now these next 3 tabs are typically not used in this version of the quotes tool: shipping, taxes, and currencies. Now shipping, most of our resellers, they just create a one-time charge that is a shipping charge, so it just shows up on a quote. They don't do anything fancy here in the quote tool to show shipping. They just add it as in NRC, a one-time charge. On taxes, the quotes tool is not connected to the telecom tax database like the billing services platform is. It's not connected. Okay, so, and in general, most in telecom sales and in the telecom market, customers are used to seeing on a quote, this quote does not include surcharges, taxes, or fees. The disclaimer. So the disclaimer is used a lot in the telecom industry because we typically don't show taxes on quotes, and even if you did try to use this, it's only going to show particular taxes that you've set up And in Canada, the taxes run a lot different than in the United States. There's not multiple taxes that show up on a telecom bill. So this really was created for the Canadian market. So I don't find our resellers using shipping taxes or currencies. Now, currencies could be used if you do business in Canada as well as US, but typically you can show the quote in US dollars, which lines up with the Canadian dollars, type thing. So this is typically not used either, shipping taxes or currencies. Now, let's talk about payment gateways. Now, during the quote acceptance process, you can require that a customer make a payment during the quote acceptance process as they're going through those screens. And in that case, if you want to do that, you would need to set up your payment gateway. Now, if we select this, Authorize.net is a gateway that is used quite often with our resellers. It is the most used. And you can set your own gateway up here. You would put in your API login and transaction key. You would select your currency, which probably you only have the one selected for US dollars. But then per quote template, you could decide to then require a payment to be made during the quote acceptance process. So just want you to know that that is available. And we'll talk more about that later. The last four tabs are important. The integrations tab, let me talk about this. Now, on your Plan A Essentials plan that we have you on, this is the only integration that you're going to see in here. And this is the Zapier that we've created that actually transfers information from the Quotes tool to the Billing Services tool. So you're going to want to leave this alone, leave this in here. And we'll talk more about how quote information gets then transferred into the billing platform. Now, if you go with the advanced package, there are some advanced integrations like with QuickBooks, etc., that you can take advantage of in the advanced package. Okay, so labels and messages. Now, again, across your global settings, this is a way of customizing basically the language and the look and feel, of your quote templates, of your quotes, your checkouts, your emails. I'll give you an example here. Now, you're going to want to spend some time in here, but I'll give you an example. This quote tool is designed by a group out of Canada, so we see postal code here in the contact information that's going to show up on the quote template, right? So, of course, we're mostly dealing in the States here, so we would want to change that to zip code instead of postal code. So whatever I put in this field will overwrite what is over here. And you can do that, for anything in the contact information, anything in the privacy policy area, items, footer, validation messages, etc. Okay, so you're just going to want to spend some time here customizing the verbiage, within your system on the quote template. It is also on the quote itself, what's going to appear on the quote itself. If, for example, this is the telephone label, maybe we want this to say telephone or email instead of this, right? So again, this is a way of changing your look and feel and language messaging in your quotes tool. The last two, I'll leave that. The last two are form fields. These are fields which will be required on your quote templates, and then quote columns. You can set the columns which will be shown on your quote PDFs. Okay, so you're going to want to spend some time on the global settings of account and settings. Then the next step will be that you want to spend some time with your quote templates. So you click on quotes and then quote templates. Now, in the system, you can have as many quote templates as you like. There's no limit, right? In this demo site, we have 3 quote templates. And now the way you will modify can add a new template by clicking on new quote template here, but the way you would customize or modify an existing quote template is by clicking on the pencil to the right. Okay, so here you have you can start modifying this quote template. Now you could have quote templates that focused on vertical markets. You could have quote templates that focused on certain product lines like hosted versus SIP trunking, you know, and so the quote template would focus in on that product or that vertical market. So in this case, this is hosted PBX for GrandStream. So now below here you have items. Now you can add items to this quote template so that when someone goes to use that quote template, the items would appear. And I'll show you how this works a little bit later. But I will also show you that there's an easy way to search for items when you want to build a quote. And so this doesn't buy you a lot of convenience, but it's here and you could use it if you want. Now on each quote template, you're going to decide this recurring fees. Now, this is really not used with our billing platform, etc. So what we typically do is we set the recurring billing frequency to 0. You can adjust your quotes based on frequency. So you notice you can show monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. So based on how the products or items are set up, you can adjust the pricing, etc. on your quotes from here, but it's generally not used. And so this recurring fee billing frequency, we typically set it on our quote templates to 0, monthly, 0, and 0. Okay, we let the billing platform handle frequency and grace period, you know. So just want to point that out. Now on this quote template, you click on the content tab and it'll show you that you can pre-fill or build a quote template with a certain cover page, with a certain introductory section, show page header and footer, introductory section, appended content. So you can build out these introductory sections with diagrams, with pictures. You know, so if you have a quote template that's based on a certain product line, you could put your pictures of your product line here. You could put extra content. You can also attach certain file attachments so that when you create a quote from a certain quote template, it would attach certain files like an LOA or SLA information, etc. So that's what these are. Now when you go to build a quote from this quote template, at the moment you build the quote, you still can decide whether you want to include the cover page or the introductory section or the appended content for that particular quote or not. So it's still giving you that flexibility. Okay, but here you're building out the look and feel and the contents of the quote template. Now on the next tab of acceptance and payments, if you want to have the customer go through an acceptance, what this really does is it puts an accept quote button on the PDF. Okay, and then it will take the customer through an acceptance process or a checkout process. And so if you do that, you can require the customer to see and to accept terms. So if you built out your terms, you could put all your terms in here, and then you could that would require that the customer see those, accept those those terms, and go through that process. Now also on a particular quote template, we had talked earlier about setting up the payment gateway. Well, here on this particular quote template, we can decide whether the customer is going to make a is going to be required to make a payment during the quote acceptance process. So you can have them do a full payment or a deposit. If you have them do a deposit, it could be a specific amount. It could be based on a percentage of the quote. Okay, 50% down, something like that. All right, so we'll just leave that disabled for now, but typically we do require signature, and this is an e-signature capability. I'll point that out in a minute. So let's but here this send invoice, that's not used in our field of telecom. We generally do not ever see this send invoice, so we'll disable this. And all right, so that's the acceptance and payments, and then the last is settings of the particular quote template. Now you can auto CC or BCC certain individuals. They'll be automatically CC'd or automatically BCC'd upon a quote being created from this quote template. Here we will decide how the quote is going to be viewed, whether it's internal only or public. There is a certain URL, and it'll have your name in it, your domain name, your company name, that you can give to your customer to view the quote online. I generally don't find that our resellers use this option here. There's some promotional text that you could add to the quote template. Then below there you just get into some other general settings of the quote template. So send quotes to customers, typically we will see that this is set to manually initially. Now maybe later, once you get it down and you have exactly what you want to do on your quote template, you could set this to automatic. Typically we do show the cost breakdown, so you want to leave that as show. Calculate margins, yes, and we'll talk more about that later. Restrict discounting, no, you want to be able to set your discounting. And then separate upfront and recurring. Okay, here you can decide on the quote itself to separate out upfront and recurring and which one appears first. So we'll just leave that as separate out or show the upfront prices first. Under shipping and taxes, again, we don't use this free shipping threshold. I don't see it used. The calculate tax, no, so you'll have to set this to no because it's defaulted for yes. And then hide total information. Typically this is no, we don't hide it. We leave the subtotal information and total information so the customer can see that on the quote. All right, so there is a capability within the system to add custom fields to quote templates and then therefore to quotes. So the system does give you some advanced capability like that, and you can play around with that if you need any kind of field to show up on a quote in particular that you would like to have. So now we're just going to save our quote template. Okay, so you will want to build out your quote templates here, and then on this same line I'm going to go ahead and talk about items before we go on to run an actual quote. Okay, so items. This is how we add your items, or this is where you'll see your items or your product catalog in the quotes tool. Now, let me talk about how that works internally. So right now you're in the process of submitting, or you've already submitted your product catalog to onboarding. When we get that, we upload it into the billing platform, billing services, and then when we upload it into the billing services platform, it creates a product ID. And in the quotes tool, the product ID will be shown in the code column. So these codes right here are product IDs that are generated by the billing services platform. And these are important because when you transfer quotes from the quotes tool over into the billing services, the product ID has to be on the product. If a product ID were to be missing, then the billing services platform would reject that quote. And it would reject it because it doesn't understand what that product is, and it would reject the entire quote if even one of the products or services on that quote did not have a code or a product ID. So those are important, and that's what you see here. Now on your items tab, you'll see that you can add new items. Now you have to be careful with that because again, they have to have a product ID. Now, if you already know the information, and I will show you how to view your product catalog from your billing services platform, in your billing services platform. And if you had us add an item, you could add your item yourself into the quotes tool by just clicking on new item and completing that out. Now, and the information, you'll have the information from your product catalog that is in the billing services platform. All right, so it'll tell you how many total items you have. If you need to search, I like to use this all fields. So if you, for example, type in hosted in this all fields and click find, it'll bring up just all your hosted. So there's 13 entries of hosted items. Now you'll see also that it tells you whether an item is monthly or non-recurring. That's in the recurring column. Tell you the price. Item type is typically item parent. You'll see that's pretty normal. Now, the one thing I want you to notice here is that you can click on the pencil on any particular item. In fact, let's go back. I'll look up a phone. Let's look up Yealink. Okay, so let's say, for example, we wanted to take this Yealink T27G and click on the pencil. I want you to know that you can modify your items. So we could add a photo, an image. You can attach it here, or you could add it here into the description. You could give a further description here of this particular item. So if you were to attach an image or put an image on the description, that would show on the quote when you select this T27 to quote it to a particular person or to a particular company. Okay, so you have the ability to modify your items. Let's go back to items, and the other thing you need to know is that you can import your items. Now, we generally do this for you when we upload the product catalog into billing services, and then we upload it into the quotes tool. We'll use this import items function. All right, so I just wanted to give you the basics here. So let's move on. So that's items. And so after you build out your quote templates and you know your items are here, then you can start quoting. Now you'll start quoting by clicking on quotes, and you'll click new quote. So let's just select that that one quote. Okay, so I've started to pre-fill this information, and so your name, first name, just typical information here. But I want you to point out that when you start adding in like address information, it's connected to the web as far as pulling data, and it'll help you so you can pre-fill information. The quote number is optional. If you've set a a number, we'll see that it'll give it the next number. Now, right below here it says email quote to customer. You can decide, and it depends on how you've set up this quote template, as to whether this quote will then go automatically, or it's going to stay and you'll manually send the quote to the customer. But I want you to see that you have access here over the body. Now, if you pre-filled your email signature on your user, then your information would show here. If you did not, then whatever is put in the global email signature will show here. Okay, so you can CC, BCC, you can change the subject line if needed. Now you can include attachments, additional attachments. You can change the quote name. You can decide, like on this particular quote, whether you want to include the cover page or not. That's built in the quote template. You can also decide, you can also edit that cover page at this moment for that particular customer if you needed to make some changes to that cover page or the introductory section. So you can get real specific on your quote. You can decide to discount across the whole quote. All right, and you can do it as a percentage or in a discount amount, and that would be across the whole quote. or as we add items, you'll see here. So let's go ahead and hang on one second. We'll add item. Okay, so once you decide what to do with emailing the quote and the quote name and the cover page and the introductory section, and again the appended section will be below this, what you decide to do with those things, once you do that, then you can add items. Now, I mentioned on a quote template that you could display your items at this point for this particular quote template. And those would appear right here if you had displayed those. We decided not to, and we decided just to add items at this point. So let's click Add Item. And so it brings up our product catalog, and we see our 155 entries here. And we can decide to search for these items. So let's say we wanted to add some hosted services. Let's do that. We'll go with the 1 year, the 500 minute. Actually, we'll do the month to month. So when you want to add an item to a quote, you just click Add Item, and then we'll also add our on the next page here, our setup. So here's our setup. We'll add that. Okay, and then we will add some phones. I've got a T48S on my desk. I love that phone, so we'll add some Yealink T48Ss. Okay, so just click Close, and then when we go back to our quote here, here's our items. Now, you can click on the pencil of any particular item. You could change the description for this particular customer. You could add in additional description, or if this was pre-filled, and like an image was here or the image was attached, it would be here, and we can make changes to it further if we needed to. We can also decide at this point to override the pricing. So let's say that we're going to give this customer a discount, okay, and you'll see here this fixed cost and gross margin. We did not add our cost on our items tab, but you can do that. You can add in your fixed cost, and you could see a gross margin here at this point. And then you could also see it on the quote in a grayed out fashion. I'm not going to cover cost and margin real heavy in this presentation here, because those are advanced features and you can use those. Okay, once you get in, you start quoting, you can go in and set your costs, and you can see your margins, so that when you do a particular quote, you can understand what kind of margin you have on that particular quote. Alright, so we're going to set our unit price. We're going to override it. We have our code there. We see that this charge is recurring because it's our hosted product, and we're just going to say no item is not taxable, save. Now that's just in the quote tool. That has nothing to do with the billing platform. Now I can also change my quantity here. I'm going to charge a install setup fee. You see how it's not recurring, and let's see what the price is, $19.99. We'll just leave it at that, and we'll say no on taxable. It's going, yeah, since I said override, it's wanting me to override, so I'll just say no again and save. And we'll say 15 of those, and we'll say 15 phones. Alright, so that's how you can modify your quote, your quantity, your pricing. You can also apply a discount per product, and it can be a percentage or a discount, or again, you can do the discounting across the whole quote. Alright, so we won't do any discounting here. We'll just leave that off, and we'll go ahead. Now down here below you'll have this quote options, manual tax rates, and manual shipping. Again, these are not used by resellers, so just disregard those, and we'll create our quote. Now once you create a quote, you'll see that on the quotes page. And so here's our quote, the Texas Brisket Company. Here's our total recurring. That's what our recurring is going to be. Now you'll see that the quote is in a pending state. It has not been sent to the customer yet. It's in a pending state. And now once it goes to the customer and the customer accepts it, it'll go to an accepted state here in the status column. And then the way we push the information of the quote into the billing services platform is by changing a quote typically from accepted into ordered, but you could change it from pending to ordered. The fulfilled and lost will help with the statistics on that main dashboard, but I'll just stay focused on the accepted and ordered right now. Now if you want to view a quote, you click on the magnifying glass here. Now here's our accept quote button. Here's our information of our quote, who we sent the quote to. Now if you had your logo, it would in on that global setting on the account tab, you would see your logo here. Then you see how it separates out the upfront versus the recurring fees on the quote, and it does a cost breakdown here at the bottom. Okay, now this is the way the PDF's going to look when your customer receives it. Okay, now once your customer receives the quote and he clicks on accept quote, he's going to go through a checkout process. Now again, the checkout process is going to be based on how you set up the quote template, and then also, like for example, here's those terms. Remember I had put those accept terms, so here they are, and I have read, understood, and agree with the terms above. You could leave this off if you wanted to, if you didn't want to show this at all, and all the verbiage. So really, you can, like this even checkout could say something different here. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is that your global settings are important because it's going to be the experience that your customer is going to have through the process of checking out or accepting a quote. Okay, so let's just go ahead and say I've read. Now when we put in our name, we're going to see, now it is electronic signature capability, so either it's going to do it this way or you could draw your signature. Okay, so we will accept quote, and your order has been received. And again, even this page can be customized, and this verbiage can be customized, so you can tell the customer what's going to happen at this point. And we did not on this quote template state that the customer was required to make a payment, but if you did, they would have had to go through a payment process right there where they would have had to put in a credit card and make a payment in order to accept the quote. All right, so let's go back to quotes and back to our quotes page. Now we'll see that the quote now went from pending to accepted because the customer accepted the quote. There is an acknowledgement button here. It's kind of just a visual, quick visual, because when you create quotes and you can revise a quote using the pencil. Now you see how this one is 2 and then 2.2. When you revise a quote, it will create another version of it. So it revises it and creates a version. It does not just modify the current version. It leaves the initial version and creates a revision. Okay, now you see this envelope. You see how there's different colors. There's clear, there's black, there's green, blue, and green. Okay, so these are at different stages. So let's when you click on an envelope, on the tracking tab you'll see sent, processed, delivered, opened, clicked. So this is real cool because when you send a quote to a customer, you might be wondering, well, what have they looked at it? All right, well this is going to pretty much tell you that they've opened it, probably clicked on it. It'll tell you that, and so you'll know where your customer is, and you'll know that they've read it probably, but haven't accepted it yet, or etc. Now you can also send a new email out to the customer from this page if you need to. So let's look at the revision page too, because I want you to see what that looks like. The revision page allows you to come in, you can make changes to the description, the extended description, the quantity, the pricing, the discounting, so you can make any changes that you need to make. You can add items, so you can completely revise the quote for your customer. And there's some internal comments that you can make. You can also assign a quote to someone, generate a public link to send to your customer, or you can delete quotes or quote revisions. So this is basically the process of creating a quote and setting up your quote tool. Now, I wanted to tell you also how to see your product catalog in the billing services, so I'll do that now. But I just want to reemphasize that when you want to push the information of a quote into the billing services platform, the customer's accepted the quote. Now you need to send it over to the billing platform in order to start the process of setting up the billing for the customer. You would change that to ordered, okay, and that would then push that information into the billing services platform. So as you go from the quotes tool over to your billing services in your Dash Manager, this is where you're going to be able to see your product catalog. If you go Reports, Reports List, Shared Reports, and Product Catalog, this is where you will be able to view your product catalog that we've uploaded into the billing services platform. If you notice, each product has a product ID. This is generated by the billing services platform, and we can't change that. It's generated by it, and that's what the product ID is going to be. Now, when we then take this and we download it and we load it into the items of the quotes tool, this product ID will show up in the code column. Okay, another thing too, you'll be able to see your tax class settings. We have sent this to CSI for tax mapping, and that's what these tax class settings are. We're going to talk more about that in a subsequent training session, but I just wanted to point out this is where you can see your product catalog. You can export it out as a CSV or a regular spreadsheet, and therefore there make any changes that you might want to make and have us make in here for you. Okay, so there'll be more about the product catalog in the billing services training. We wanted to focus in on the quotes tool, and if you have any questions, you can send those to onboarding@skyswitch.com. Just send those, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Thank you for attending.